Good evening and welcome to the South African of the Year Daily Show here on ANN7 Channel 405, the show where we go into the lives of extraordinary and inspiring South Africans doing incredible things across the country through the lens of reflection and progression, all leading up to that day of the South African of the Year Awards on the 25th of November at the Ticket Pro Dome. My name is Maps Maponyane.
Thank you so much for joining us, sitting down with yet another inspiring nominee, Ndifundisani Ravele.
Our guest for today's show is a man who forms a crucial part of the team that protects our country's rhinos and elephants and makes sure that they are guarded and very, very well protected with a strong force around them. He's nominated, or they're nominated, in the Conservationist of the Year category for the South African of the Year Awards, and they are the Kruger National Park's Anti-Poaching Unit. And with us, of course, in studio is Mr. General Johan Jooste. General, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening.
General, let's start at the very beginning. 35 years in the army, then moving into sort of a corporate role somewhere for an American company. And 4 years ago, you decide, slap bang, I'm moving into this anti-poaching world of life. Let's talk about the transition between the two and the why, really. Why did you decide to do this?
It was a huge transition, that I must admit. It came quite naturally as a South African. Most of us love nature, and most of us are robust in our experience and how we go about the world. And then one were privileged over the years, the building blocks that were put together in the University of Life that I've gone through in my 40 plus years being productive has served me well in terms of the knowledge of the wild, an ambiguous environment, technology, and the various facets that has to be managed when you do counter-poaching in a modern-day environment.
Why have you chosen to really look after our rhinos and elephants in particular, and how grave is the situation?
When I was approached, I realized that it was grave. I was approached, it was not something that was pre-planned like so many good things in life. When I got into the job, I realized from the very beginning that it will be challenging. It took me 2 cruel months to realize just how challenging, that I must admit. And in those 2 months, I realized that we will not win the campaign with the rangers only. This will have to be a whole of government, I thought, and I later on learned a whole of society approach. All the state departments, all the parastatals, all the NGOs, national and international, regional, continental. That I learned the hard way, and that is why we formulated then a strategy that we follow, of which anti-poaching or counter-poaching is an integral part. You've got to do that while all the other solutions are being sought after.
When we look at the situation out there with our elephants and rhinos, on the daily, there is no campaign that does not tell you that the situation out there is dire. But we have people like Johan and his team, of course, at the Kruger Park, who are at the forefront of being solutions-driven and just reaching for that hope and hoping that we'll still have elephants and rhino around, right, for many years to come. But we'll continue chatting about that as we sit down with our Conservationist of the Year nominee. It's the Kruger Park Anti-Poaching Project. If you'd like to vote for them, Cons 5, you need to SMS that to 43043, or you can email it to satyvoting@nn7.com. A project such as this takes a lot of people, and it happens in the outdoors. So we sent our cameras off to see what goes down at the Kruger Anti-Poaching Project.
Hi, I'm retired General Johan Jooste, the head of special projects for the South African National Parks. At the end of my second career, I turned 60 then. The opportunity to work for SANParks came about at the end of 2012. I was inducted then, and I started working January 2013. The post was established, this post of Head of Special Projects, to combat wildlife crime and corruption. It started off with rhino poaching primarily, but has since escalated into wildlife crime and corruption for all 22 parks. Specific emphasis on the Kruger National Park and also on the other rhino parks. A day in the life as head of special projects sandparks is an erratic one, as you cannot dictate the campaign. We have never been there. We hope one day to have the initiative, to have more stability. In any one day, you've got to be able to attend to tactical matters, really routine matters that concerns matters in the field, up onto strategic matters, those matters where you must answer to your political leadership, your leadership, those matters where you participate in strategic planning, and then in between, you've got to make sure that you implement, that you get the job done. We have a saying, think big, start small, act now. Now in any one day, you've got never to lose the big picture. You've got to make sure that you initiate, that you keep the initiative, that you start things, and you've got to act, because the campaign is on now, the poaching is occurring now. The main challenge is that we fight international wildlife crime, international wildlife trafficking. And one would really like a time in future, sooner than later, when all the parties in our country, the whole of society, the whole of government, also in the region and on the continent, participates in fighting wildlife crime. Because it's a challenge we face, it's escalating, the demand is escalating, the money at stake is huge. We have to accept that it will require a really whole of society effort, a sustained effort to win the campaign. We work with every neighbor in Mozambique, ranging from national parks to private concessions, and likewise on the South African side. We grew the estate to get to where we are. And then lastly, we made sure that we communicate well. Communication is a part of this campaign. The nation needs to know, the world wants to know, and our adversaries must also know that we are serious about this business.
What are some of the things that you've implemented in the last 4 years to curb this serious issue?
When I arrived in Kruger National Park, I listened well, I tried to listen well, and we went all over the park and the adjacent areas, Mozambique included, to really understand the situation. I did a 3-year plan that was completed by the end of last year. That plan had to ensure that you get the people, the structures, the sustainment, the training, equipment, and how. The how is so important, the doctrine of anti-poaching together. Our philosophy says, think big, start small, act now. Things are happening now. Start small, no analysis paralysis. Make sure that you implement when you can. But there is a bigger picture. Don't forget that with enforcement alone, you will not win the campaign. You will not stop poaching or illegal wildlife trafficking.
And the team makes the dream work. It's not only Johan Jooste who works very hard at the anti-poaching unit in the Kruger Park. He has a whole team behind him. We sat down with some of his colleagues and they let us in on the day-to-day runnings and how the unit operates. Have a look.
Our anti-poaching unit in sandparks has evolved over time. In the past, we used to do more conservation, I would say 80% conservation and 20% anti-poaching. But today things have changed. We are more 80% anti-poaching and 20% conservation. I don't think there's anyone who can compete with our field rangers on the ground. They know the bush, they know this, they can follow the spoor, they know their job. It's just our job is to make sure that they perform very well, and also we upskill them with the latest technology, with the latest development.
A day will very, very much depend on what is happening out in the field. So we get updated per second, per minute, per hour as to tracks being followed, incursions within the Kruger National Park, where the threat is, and as the threat develops, we will then be required to support. That will happen on a daily basis in the Kruger National Park, sometimes multiple times per day. So it's not a job that is done every other day or once a week. It's every day and sometimes multiple times per day.
First dangers that that we encounter as rangers is firstly the animals. This is a big five area where we're operating. So you got elephants, buffaloes and lions. And there were a few occasions that some of the rangers, they lost their lives as a result of animals charging at them, and others get killed by either cats and stuff like that.
I think what I love about what I do is that, you know, we're really protecting our heritage as a country, and it's a calling, and that conservation or protected area management is really for all South Africans and for all people worldwide to enjoy. And if we don't protect our heritage, then really we have a poorer country at the end of the day.
At the rate we are losing animals in South Africa, more especially in Kruger Park, is not acceptable. And it's something that gives us sleepless nights. And more especially myself, my supervisors from the managing executive to the CEO, to the Minister of Environment, to the President, we are measured. We will all be measured on what we do with our rhinos. If we can save these rhinos, we'll be heroes. But if we lose these rhinos, I think we'll be villains. We will be seen as losers.
And as Hulisani said, teamwork really does make the dream work in this kind of a situation. And I actually want to touch on you regarding teamwork, because you have to overextend to more than just the anti-poaching unit that you have as the Kruger National Park. The problem, as I mentioned earlier, is so severe, but it's so felt throughout the community, or parts of the community, and a lot of the private companies for anti-poaching, that you need to actually join forces with them. There's a I think units like ProTrack, which definitely attacks the issue and really tries to get involved with the Kruger National Park to lessen the amount of rhinos that are being poached. How important is it relating with all those different types of groups?
Interaction with all the stakeholders around the park, in South Africa, in the region, on the continent, and even wider. But if we look at Kruger, you have various groupings around Kruger where you must lead. You cannot dictate or tell them what to do. We had to take them along on this journey, well, because it's for our the both good. You have got to ensure that in the short term you enforce law, so that in the medium term you come back to good solid conservation, and ultimately you get up with tourism. That is the economic engine of the Lowveld. So when you cooperate, when you establish coordinating mechanisms of fora, one is always mindful that at least as South Africans, as a private and a public sector, we are united behind this. We've learned that, and it has been very, very encouraging all along as we went into this campaign, how people would join in and how you would sense and feel and physically experience cooperation. The final demonstration of strategic intent is the allocation of resources. So if you look at the resources that private parks put in, provincial parks, that even the private sector security put into this, and then our own department, our own minister, and then our own sandparks and the Kruger management. That makes a Ranger Corps and the associated wings of the anti-poaching unit strong. That makes sure that even in the face of adversity, we stick together. This is a drawn-out campaign. After the first year that we tried and established this, there were not much to be excited about. And even as we speak today, we have success, but victory is elusive. The team, the collective good, the whole of society approach is what will ensure longevity, so that in years to come, we have control over illegal wildlife trade in our country and our region.
It takes everybody. It's not just the guys that are working at the Kruger Park, but you and I, you sitting at home right now, you're also a part of the solution. If you'd like to vote for the Kruger National's anti-poaching unit to walk away with the Conservationist of the Year award, then SMS CONS5 to 43043 or email that code to satyvoting@nn7.com. Of course, by voting, this is the only way you stand a chance to win tickets to the event. Tickets are not on sale, so kupali voting, and don't say that sinvalele ngaphandle. We gave you a chance. Get voting. I think to take a step back, really, we've understood what the project is about and what it is that you do, but what is the why behind it? Why do we need poaching to stop? You know, is it really just a simple case of we're not going to have elephants in 5 years' time for our future generations to see? Is there not a bigger ecological problem that is going to result as a matter of us not dealing with this poaching seriously?
Sandparks has 50 million shareholders, not stakeholders, shareholders. This is South Africa, this is heritage. Within heritage, there are our parks. Not only our parks, but our parks. And within those parks, you have the iconic Kruger National Park. In the parks, there are many animals. But then we talk about megafauna, the big animals. And inside there, we talk rhino. With its prehistoric origins, the symbol behind it is much stronger than we think. And I know one must remain logic, one must apply common sense when you do this, but there is an emotional facet to this. But apart from biodiversity, the heritage, ultimately tourism and the sharing of all of it, there's a cost to this campaign. This campaign costs inordinate amounts of money that at some other time we'll have to scale down. While we do it, the world must help us pay, because it's the world's rhino. South Africa has ensured that the world has rhino today.
In 2016, between January and July, we have seen 702 rhinos being poached compared to 796 last year. There were 458 carcasses found compared to 557 carcasses found last year during the same time. Overall, there's a 17.8% drop in the amount of poaching that has happened in the Kruger National Park. So are we really winning the fight against poaching? This is what a few members of the anti-poaching unit at the Kruger National Park had to say on this matter.
Winning the fight against the poaching, I think definitely we are winning. The numbers and the animals that are being killed with respect to the amount of incursions we have per day has definitely decreased, which says something in itself. You know, the more incursions we have and the fewer rhinos that are killed per day shows really the effort that the rangers are making. And I think definitely there is a decrease.
I would talk about 85% of all the incursions that we had this year, and then we had our success rate. It's about 85%, of which we're very proud of what we've been doing this year, that we had so much success, and it contributes to the whole IPZ, which is the southern part of Kruger National Park.
We win the battles. We haven't won the war yet. It's a long, protracted war or campaign that we have to fight. There's no single silver bullet that's going to solve the rhino poaching right now. But yes, we have successes, which keeps us sane, keeps us motivated. So from battle to battle, we have successes.
For me, this is not a job, this is me, this is my career. I've joined conservation at a very young age, just after matric. I don't see it as a job, I see it as part of my life. But also to be, one of the things that people forget is that we are so lucky. People pay to come to the places that we are paid to work in. And we forget about that. I always said to my guys, if your salary, add 2 zeros in your salaries because they are indirect incentives that you are getting out of this clean environment. Working with wildlife on a daily basis, away from people. That's what makes us different.
Yes, I'm positively sure that we're winning, but it's not there yet. There's still a long way to go.
Johan, your team speaking very highly of the work that they're doing, and I mean, it is challenging, and it doesn't come, you know, just like that the success that you're garnering just happens overnight. Will we ever see a time where the end user, who are the people that are buying products that are a result of what the poachers are getting from the animals, will we ever get to a point where they too are linked to the crime? So it's not just the poacher, but you as an end user are discouraged to be involved in the purchasing of things such as rhino horns or products, byproducts thereof.
We will be forsaking our rangers if we don't attack the full value chain.
Yeah.
From where it's incubated, the evil minds, the greed, right through to the very end user. Now, if I always say it's almost like the peels of an onion, and the rangers out there must know that we're pursuing all of this, because without this, this will be eternal, and we will slowly hemorrhage and just bleed to death. The outer layer of the onion, the demand, and the user countries. Without being culturally insensitive, we have to get there one day.
And all you need to do is SMS CONS5. That's the word CONS and the number 5 to 43043, or email CONS5 to satyvoting@ann7.com, or you can go to our website www.ann7.com and follow the instructions there and vote for them and perhaps anyone else in the other categories. We'll be back right after this with some fun and games as we test General Johan Jooste on his South African general knowledge.
I think of the colleagues in conservation that are not directly involved with the anti-poaching, the veterinary service, the scientific service, the normal people working in every park, making it work. There are so many of them that plays a role that is not as prominent now as ours, but it's a real role.